I use AI. I use AI to form your opinions.
Yeah, you just replace my voice with just like a yes, James and Isaac, you guys are totally right and so smart. I never noticed because I don't watch the episodes.
I should do that. That should be funny. Just one day have ChatGPT write our scripts.
Write our scripts.
Yeah.
If there's anything more scarier than ChatGPT writing our entire episodes, it would be not the cabin in the woods.
This episode's actually about the
something about the transition just really worked out for me here. All right, we're back. We're here.
Please don't put that in the
It's
episode.
been a while. Oh, that's going in.
Oh God.
That's going in. Anyways, we're back. We're here. It's another week, another $1. It's been like 2 weeks.
My apologies.
Some unfortunate circumstances
I got sick.
came our way, but it's all good. We're back. We're all healthy. And we're still in spooky season. Well, you know, physically we're still healthy to a degree, I think. I woke up with the upset stomach.
We're still in spooky season, and we are continuing our discussion on horror movies with this week, Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, the scariest movie of all time.
Terrifying.
It's a movie.
You guys had not seen this before.
No, we had not.
But you had heard about it.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew
What were your expectations going into it? What had you heard, at least?
I mean, I heard that it was more funny than scary.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of expected just to kind of giggle the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
That was about it. I mean,
I knew about the like control room, NASA, NSA headquarters. That is a thing. I just didn't know like actual plot points and the like weirdness of this movie.
The weirdness is the big factor.
I thought it was my imagination thought, or I had imagined that it was like a social experiment kind of thing, where like it was supposed to be like, oh, these people run these experiments to see how certain individuals react to if they were in a horror movie, instead of like we create the horror movie to appease the gods that are, you know, gonna kill us if we don't. And when that started happening, I was like, oh, this is weird. This is definitely a Joss Whedon kind of thing, because it's like so far out of left field.
Yeah.
But I think I enjoyed it more that way, just because it leaned more into the kooky nature of the premise and the story.
I know you guys aren't fans of gore. Did the kooky nature kind of help offset the
there's
violence?
a difference between like not being a fan of gore and not wanting to watch torture porn, James. Like I'm cool with like watching a man get cut in half. I'm like, that's pretty sick.
I'm just saying, you know, some people it's just blood in general.
No, yeah, I thought it was it was fine. I was about to just jump straight into spoiler talk, but
no, go right ahead.
I mean,
I guess it's
a
go
right ahead.
movie.
They all die at the end of the film.
Yeah. Spoiler. We all die at the end of the film.
Yeah, actually, everyone dies at the end of the film.
We were actually in another dimension.
Well, then that sequence when all the elevators open up and then all the monsters release and you can see everything just getting destroyed. I was like, that's sick.
Yeah, that's when I bought into it, where I was just
like,
oh, this movie just doesn't care.
Yeah, I was like, it was a like, wow, that looks really cool, and like that's a really cool way to like show this premise. Also, wow, that's a lot of like manpower behind that. Oh my god, how much effort did that take? It
if anything, it says more on the commentary that we see something that extreme happen and we're like, yeah, that makes sense. Wait, am I becoming desensitized?
Are you? Do you feel like this movie even comments upon that?
On desensitization. Wow, that's not... You know what I mean. Being desensitized to violence. I mean, I guess you could make a comment about that. I mean, because the control room is literally like celebrating and popping bottles of champagne as in the background the final girl is getting slaughtered. So, I mean, you know.
I think they also drop a line, too, where it's like, I think there's a throwaway line by one of the main two guys. It's like, we need to get spookier and gorier because, you know, what we did 5 years ago doesn't work anymore. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It just seems like a direct shot at the horror genre
actual
and
comedy,
like the lack of creativity behind the kills that I think the slasher, specifically the slasher genre, had for those weird like, teenage years.
What I thought was interesting is the fact that this movie, they wanted to revitalize the slasher genre. Like, they weren't trying to outright make a parody or satire of it.
Yeah.
They wanted it to be like a new approach to the genre entirely. But it's such a parody of it anyway to begin with, where they call out all the obvious tropes within the genre. People going into the woods, meeting a creepy old man, ignoring his warning. That's all Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, I guess from here.
So
Yeah, that was a really pregnant pause,
Yeah.
James.
You gotta keep people interested. Do you feel like it succeeds? Immediately
Good
episode just
episode.
under there. No, I mean, so do you feel like this actually succeeds as a slasher film, or does it succeed more as a parody or satire?
I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely more of a parody than it is a slasher film. If anything, because like the monster slasher is only around for like a handful of scenes at best.
Yeah.
The
What were they
There
called?
was
The
zombies or
zombie redneck torture family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Buckners, I think, is their actual name. I mean, yeah, they were there. They did some cool kills, but like, I think because it's so like invested in the control room and the appeasement and having to do it certain ways, and there's so many like times where you see them like messing with the variables, you're like, it's not really a slasher so much. It is like, you know,
The social commentary.
yeah.
If
How
the
so?
society was horror filmmakers of
Yeah.
the era of like, you guys are going too far.
Eli Roths
there's
and
no,
Rob
like,
Zombies.
class to what this could be. Yeah, yeah. Like, you know, when we have 4 Hostels and what was the other Eli Roth? Green Inferno, I think.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what are we doing here? You know. Or what is it? Animal Holocaust in the 80s, where they killed an actual
Or
turtle.
Cannibal Holocaust. is
Cannibal
what it was
Holocaust.
called.
Thank you. Yeah, they killed an
Yeah.
actual. That movie's bizarre, by the way. Don't ever watch that movie. They kill an actual turtle on camera.
Yikes.
It's pretty demented, but
It was supposed to be a documentary.
yeah. It's another interesting Hollywood movie.
I want to jump into this first before I move on. What would you rate Cabin in the Woods?
Well, what are your thoughts?
One of my thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it ultimately fails as a parody.
As a parody?
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because for one specific reason, and that is a comparison to another film that I immediately thought of right away, and that was the film Funny Games. It's a 1997 film from Austria. The movie references it like outright.
Yeah.
That opening where it's the 2 guys driving in the golf cart, just completely innocuous, and then big red letters and screaming. That's Funny
Just throw
Games
that out.
right
Okay.
there. That's just an immediate reference. They reference a ton of horror movies in this.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a given.
Like Hellraiser, The Shining, freaking. It almost feels like they reference Scooby-Doo at some points too. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
One of the monsters was the angry molesting tree from Evil Dead.
Yeah, yeah. So
There were a couple monsters that are like
just
Straight out of
outright
something
other
else.
stuff.
Yeah.
The Merman.
The Merman was great. Such a good running bit with a
Apparently.
great payoff. Yeah.
Apparently, it tested the highest
Yeah.
for the death that it caused.
So,
Classic.
in my opinion, I feel like Cabin in the Woods is such a like 2000s and 2010 movie because it here's why I think it fails. It makes fun of horror and the slasher genre,
Right.
but I don't think it works as social commentary or comments upon desensitized violence
Okay.
because it doesn't address the audience at any point in the film.
Okay.
There are a few reasons why I think this particularly. So with the slasher film in particular, right? A lot has been said and paid attention to the weird sexual subtext to those movies,
Yeah.
right? How it's always the virgin who has to die at the end, which has always made this weird commentary about like sexual purity in like the 80s or something like that, which is not ultimately untrue, I think, to a certain degree. I
Right.
think that there's
Yeah, because it was. I think John Carpenter. They asked him like straight up, like, "Did you intend for the virgin to survive, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, but because when you're not trying to get laid, you notice weird things happening around you. But I think what's interesting about that, with him saying that, is like there's still a level of subconsciousness
that we
to
just
that
all
thought
fed into
process,
that anyway.
that it's like if you are focused on getting laid, that is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Even though that wasn't your intention overtly, it's still like
it's
commentary.
a weird, like, puritanical part of American subconscious that we all
especially
kind of
because
have to a
this is
degree.
the generation of like post or like the hippies starting to come of age,
post Summer
and
of
stuff
Love,
like that.
stuff like that. Mhm.
Good times.
However, the main female character is probably one of the most sexualized characters throughout this film, other than literally the only other female character.
Right.
But it doesn't comment upon that aspect of it. This movie still sexualizes its female characters, but just so that the audience can look at it. It doesn't do it for any reason beyond we just have hot women in our film.
I feel like the movie-going audience, like us, don't ever feel ashamed.
Yeah.
Because, they call out all these tropes like, oh, the fool can die whenever, the athlete has to marry the whore, and it's like, the whore has to die first. And we should be like, you guys suck as audience members because you've been getting the same thing for 40 years. And instead, it's like, the ending, you go, all right, that happened, instead of being hit with like, oh, damn, maybe we should change the formula up.
And that's
Did we just
why...
punish women for being promiscuous, even though that's totally acceptable? Like,
And that's why I think Funny Games succeeds where Cabin in the Woods fails. And that's specifically why I wanted you guys to watch it. But you didn't have to, don't worry.
Okay.
wait,
Yeah,
wait, did you tell us to watch
I
it?
forgot.
Dead Space?
Yeah.
Oh, whoops.
If there is no greater example of a movie that tells its audience to go fuck themselves than Funny Games, it is the perfect example of that film.
Well, I'll watch it later.
All about how we perceive violence in media. Specifically, it's also a parody of slasher films. It's kind of more of a deconstruction of it, because like instead of teenagers, it's a family. Instead of a cabin in the woods, it's like a lakeside resort house.
Okay.
Instead of like the general creepy and like run down vibe, everything is really bourgeoisie and super white and fancy. The main killers aren't some like 7 foot tall guy. They're these two dudes who just want to play golf. Yeah. It could be Isaac.
You never know.
You never
no,
know.
I'm brown.
If you ever need some eggs. You're not Austrian.
Yeah,
Really
yeah,
is what it is. Oddly enough, there was a shot-for-shot remake made in America with Tim Roth and Nicole Kidman, I believe.
Naomi Watts.
Naomi Watts, that's who it is. I knew the name started with an M.
They all look familiar.
Yeah, everyone whose name starts with an M.
I mean,
Wow.
Literally before we were
there's like
recording,
5
I was like,
actresses that I would say are pretty close to being similar.
yeah. It's actually directed by the same director, too, interestingly enough. I don't think it works, the American remake, just because,
It's an American.
not just because it's American, but like
It's usually how it goes with European films.
there's a weird class element to it that just doesn't translate. Like Americans just aren't as class conscious as Europeans are
Or more,
generally.
yeah.
Especially that kind of like bourgeoisie culture.
Yeah.
But why Funny Games works is because it deliberately acknowledges the audience at every turn that it can when it comes to its violence, to the point where not only do the killers actually just like look at the camera and break the fourth wall and wink, but the way the film is made actually subverts audience expectations with violence. Interestingly enough, and I know that you guys haven't watched it, but I will spoil it a little bit here,
Yeah, go for it.
just so that I can compare the two. No violence is shown throughout the whole film.
Well, then why watch it?
You will hear people talk about how
You're the problem, Connor.
it is a brutal movie and an extremely violent movie. Nothing is ever shown. And yet,
Deep.
I mean, when you can do that and people still go, this movie is brutal and violent and like rude to its audience.
Because you're forcing the audience
know
to
what
paint
you're
the picture
doing.
in your
Yeah,
head.
yeah,
that's-
absolutely.
I think the best direct. I mean, Fincher does that.
Yeah.
To the
That's
best
a
that we
good
know of
example,
a
too.
non-horror director.
Yeah.
Where it's like you'll see something happen and you'll hear like sound effects, but it's panning to another character and showing their react. I mean, like
Yeah.
the opening sequence in what was it, Alien 3, when the alien actually comes out. Spoiler alert: the alien comes out.
Who's gonna watch it?
Never would have
But there's
guessed.
a scene where they're doing, what is it, like a autopsy or something, and they're he is literally just on the surgeon, and like you don't see anything else. You just see, and you're just like, for me at least, because I'm very bad with when it comes to blood, I was just like, all right, skip forward 15 seconds. But
Yeah.
I think that's really, I mean, that's a cool skill to have as
Yeah.
a director.
And it's
And-
also another way to say, like, if you you're expecting a violent film because you love slasher films, I will take away all the actual spectacle of the violence and just show you the aftermath, just show you that brutality, and it will have more impact because you don't know how it happened, you don't know what they did to get into that position. How did that body get over there?
Yeah.
You don't know, you just know what it looks like now.
Yeah.
You had something to say and I cut you off?
Oh, let's just say to take the like brutality without showing brutality away from even the horror genre is the first Hunger Games movie does that too.
Yeah,
Where
that's
they're in
true.
that opening clash.
That
at the
opening
cornucopia,
clash,
they don't show
really,
anybody
really
actually
good.
getting killed. They just show a lot of the like and then
Yeah.
cutting because you don't want to show kids getting slaughtered.
Unironically, Hunger Games 1 does shaky cam correct too. This is still an
Good
argument
film.
going back all the way to one of our first podcasts.
Oh, did Isaac not like it?
No, I
I was like, do I need to throw down?
We had a controversial opinions, and that was one of James's that he first threw out.
shaky
I was
cam
like-
is good.
Oh, okay.
So I just went, do you not like John Wick?
John Wick is
It's
fine.
an opinion
by
I
the way.
can.
you can understand.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can understand it, but
Yeah.
anyways, there's another
Nevertheless,
place for it.
Moving on.
that
Yeah.
big comparison, mainly because Cabin in the Woods outright references Funny Games.
Yeah.
I was like, did you guys not watch that movie all the way after the title credits? Like, you can't say I'm gonna make. That's why I don't think it's really a parody of the slasher film Cabin in the Woods, because you're only acknowledging half of it if you're just making fun of like the tropes and contents and cliches of the genre
Yeah.
itself. The way that audiences actually perceive the genre is the other side of that corn. Corn. It's a cornfield. Children of the Corn.
Might have worms. You might want to check it.
Of the coin.
Ew.
Why is my throat getting sore again, guys? I don't know.
James, please, I just got over mine.
This
Could you
is
not
gonna
give me stress?
turn into another horror podcast.
We should all talk in accents.
But no, the other side of the coin is that way that audiences will perceive your film, and to not take that into account just honestly feels kind of amateurish if you're going to go into making
Just a little lazy. Yeah.
Yeah, especially the first time we meet the main female character, she's not even wearing pants. Why?
Yeah.
It's a trope.
But they don't do anything with it.
Yeah,
They're not
that's the
doing it
thing.
for
I mean,
any reason
yeah,
other than a
but, like-
one-line joke from Chris Hemingway. I didn't want to say Liam Hemingway.
Hemsworth.
Hemsworth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta get Chris's right.
My apologies. Is he the good Chris?
No.
Okay.
He's not. He's the one
one
who
of the hot
wasn't
ones.
dating Miley Cyrus. If that answers your question.
No, it doesn't.
He's Thor.
Okay. I know he's Thor.
Not in this movie. He's not. This was from
Nah,
before he
yeah,
was
this
Thor.
was way before.
Yeah, way before
he
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
Still working on his American accent in this
Yeah, he was
movie.
still-
Yes. Yes.
Still working at
There
the
were
kinks.
moments where I was like, "What?"
He's doing his best.
Can't get another line read for that.
It's all good.
I think Funny Games does that far better, in my opinion, is the way that it actually says, I know you're watching a film and I am going to purposely play with what your expectations are. Not only with how you think of a slasher film, but how you watch and experience a slasher film. Not only actually playing with the way that I present the setups and payoffs. Cabin in the Woods doesn't really comment on that. You can make the argument that it's not its intention to do that to begin with, but it still leaves off a big glaring issue with the film if we're going to say it's a parody of slasher films.
Well, I mean, then my follow-up to that would be more of, do you believe that in all instances of parody, you have to directly address, like, the audience? Can there not be instances where it does its job without directing the audience's reactions because you trust that the audience is smart enough to understand that you are doing it in a way without actually directing?
Not only that, but you don't even have to be good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like,
Scary Movie is a good example.
That is
It
true.
breaks the fourth wall and acknowledges the audience all the time, and it's a terrible movie.
but no, what I'm saying is like, do you think that if that doesn't happen at all, it's never going to be successful? Because like you brought up the fact that main girl shows up and she's immediately pantsless, and my immediate thought was like, you know, that's a good take on it. Of course, we're expecting boobs and butts and shit in slasher films. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's funny. And then the throwaway line from Chris Hemsworth is, "Oh, you don't have any pants." And I'm like, again, the jock character is like, "Hey, fucking put some clothes on. It's stupid." Like,
yeah,
you're
but
being an
that's
idiot.
only the commenting on the trope itself.
Yeah,
Not
but-
why you're even showing that trope in the first place.
But to me, that is in of itself part of the explanation. Is that if you as the audience member go, "Oh, this is a trope," then you're like, "Well, I'm here to see the trope, aren't I?"
I
That's
interpret
fair.
it as like
There's-
a Chris Hemsworth acknowledging that, yo, the blinds are open.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
in a literal like
because in horror movies that happens all the time where a character just changes in the middle of like
Yeah.
the room and it's
Oh.
like you're blind. It's 12 o'clock noon and the blind
I
like the
think the
door is
reason-
open.
he's making a direct comment of
Yeah.
like, this doesn't make sense for you to be
Yeah.
doing whatsoever.
Yeah.
Why are you doing it?
I think the only reason it really bothers me in Cabin in the Woods and when in other, I guess, parody horror films is because they go to such an extent to subvert everything else about slasher films that to just lampshade those and just leave it at that and move on, I'm like, you did everything else with all this other stuff. Why did you just leave the stuff on the table over here?
Well, I mean, I think the funniest part of that, I mean, because I do agree that it's kind of like, okay, it's just there to be there. But the funniest part is at the very end of the film when Sigourney Weaver is explaining what the tropes are and who has to die, and they're like, and then finally the virgin can live or die, and the main girl's like, "I'm not a virgin," and Sigourney's like, we work with what we got.
Yeah,
just
and
like
that's-
just like that, like of like, oh my god, like not even this actual thing that you're
Yeah.
supposed to be following is being followed.
And that's the only time they ever even acknowledge it.
Yeah, and so
It's
like,
just another throwaway line. I'm like, at a certain point, throwaway lines are throwaway for a reason. They should have been baked more into the actual plot.
I mean, maybe it's just how I interpret things a lot, but I love those kind of stupid throwaway lines that mean nothing because oftentimes they carry a lot more weight than is usually made obvious. And you're just like, oh, it's a throwaway line, but it's like, well, a lot of those are what sticks with people is those silly throwaway gags that people are like, whatever, it just happened. And then later on, you're like, well, that's the thing that I'm thinking about the most, not the like intricate crafted moments of like absolute payoff where the hand crushes through the earth. Like, it's cool. But I'm going to be making that
I
joke about,
guess.
well, we work with what we got.
To be fair, I feel like comparing Fun and Games to Cabin in the Woods is like Hydrogen Bomb versus Coughing Baby.
Also,
certain
yeah,
extent.
What a
probably fair.
Just a far better film in every way. Anyway, you know,
Oh, you know,
not exactly.
made in not America.
Not exactly in good faith.
James and his, you know.
It's weird too because it's a $30 million movie and it's not made like it's made like a I don't know. It's pretty crudely
Feels
made.
almost cheap.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, where are you guys putting them? Like, Chris Hemsworth is not worth that much money at this point.
In the CGI.
All the CGI. Yeah.
It's like, but it's not even that good. Like, which I guess
They
is the
had 30
point.
million to work
That's
with.
the point. You know,
Yeah.
I get it. Right? They're making
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean,
whatever. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh,
God only
this
knows-
doesn't look like Dune. But it's like,
God only knows how expensive the algorithm that they had to come up with to make the cubes and elevators all work in an actual way that would make logistical sense.
Yeah.
Because they had an actual computer program that programmed how all of those move in a way that would shuffle them correctly and not have anything clip. Which I want to see that piece of code. It sounds awesome. But, just as a side note, geek moment.
we should have Connor watch The Social Network and give us his insight of it.
God no, please.
There's
I'd
like
rather
no
not.
coding in that movie
Yeah.
anyway.
Hey, they have that one scene.
have
with
one
the-
scene and-
in the beginning.
Yeah.
The only reason I
When
would
he gets
wa-
mad about the girls and he starts doing the formula.
Yeah.
Only reason I would watch that film is to just better
good
enjoy the Game Grumps bit about that film.
It's a good movie,
It is
man.
legitimately one of the
I
best
mean,
movies of the 2010s.
Trent Reznor did the score. It's very good.
It's like
I want to know
top
who invented
three.
Facebook.
It's like
Yeah.
top 3 2010 movies.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, it's 2010 movies. Is that difficult?
There's a lot of good movies in the 2010s.
know it came out in 2010.
There's a lot of good. No, I'm talking about the decade of 2010.
Yeah, I know.
There's
I don't know what came out.
That came out in 2010.
Do you feel like people take horror parodies and satire more seriously than actual horror movies themselves?
considering that you just had like a 15-minute breakdown
Yeah.
about why this movie doesn't work as a parody with like
Yeah.
nearly cited notes, I would say yeah, probably.
Yeah, but why do we think that is? Intuitively, I know you're not a big horror movie fan,
Well, I was gonna say because horror fans are.
but you feel like you would enjoy a movie like Cabin in the Woods more than you would an actual slasher film.
yeah, probably just because I enjoy jokes.
Yeah,
That's what I say. I think
Yeah, I mean,
people.
I think it's
it's like I enjoy laughing at myself
Yeah,
yeah.
to a degree. There's an element of that to it where it's like, because like I mean, you know, the Barbie movie when The Godfather came up, I was like, yeah, that's fucking me.
Yeah.
I'm him.
and then a month later, he's making me watch The Godfather. Oh,
Now it's us.
I am literally the Godfather.
Yeah.
Shut
But
up.
yeah, it's like I don't know. I feel like people can.
Yeah.
An average audience can laugh at themselves for their choice of music.
when you love
or their choice
something,
of media.
it's really fun to make fun of said thing.
I don't
as
feel
well.
like other genres really get that though.
Well, because I mean, a lot of other genres kind of make fun of themselves just by nature. I mean, half of superhero movies is them making fun of the fact that it's a superhero movie.
I mean, the real joke is that they exist to begin with.
Oh, you know,
Yeah.
same rating Spider-Mans are good. You know, like I mean, nobody watching a romance film is taking it seriously because it's
That's a lie.
I think
nobody's sane watching a romance
I was
film.
gonna say, I feel like
That's
we have-
also a lie.
I feel like we have a couple friends.
We don't take The Bachelor serious. We're drunk
Oh,
during those
man.
nights, right? That's different.
For the record, I don't watch The Bachelor with them.
He does. He refuses to.
refuse to watch The Bachelor. Watched it once. Wanted to gouge my eyeballs out.
He enjoyed every minute of
I
it.
did not. Anyways, moving on.
What were we talking
When
about?
was the last-
I think we're still making fun of horror movies.
Yeah.
What was why people like these parodies more than they like other parodies?
Do we think they're gonna come back?
Horror movie parodies?
Yeah. Because what can you really parody about the modern horror movie now? Because it's more
Yeah.
psychological and.
It almost would feel like an insult to
'Cause
mental health. if
That's
you
what I was
did
gonna say.
that.
Because horror movies nowadays are a
Yeah.
commentary on just people with
Mhm.
mental
Which,
disabilities.
admittedly,
not disabilities.
They've
Sorry,
if done
disorders.
right, could be really funny. I just don't know how
Maybe
you do it
in,
without
like-
being offensive.
Into the Cabin in the Woods.
You know, like I don't know how you make that in a way where it's not horribly offensive. But there's definitely some kind of jokes you can make here.
You would have to have
Yeah.
a really refined writer or
Yeah.
director
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
able to do that.
It would need to go through a lot of drafts.
Because I mean, you can make fun of maybe it would, social topics, but like hot topics. I say hot topics.
Yeah, you can make fun of Hot Topic all you want. We don't shop there.
Go to Spencer. Don't go to Spencer.
Go to Journeys.
I was gonna say, is this Spencer's like the rated R version of Hot Topic?
Exactly. We're adults.
Fair enough. Those
Continue your point.
Those stores still scare me.
I was like, what's scary about
I think I walked into a Hot Topic once and I was like, I don't belong.
about a bunch of emo teenagers?
The fact that they can all bully me. And they'll just be like, yeah, you're right.
You an adult man getting messed up by
Hey
a
man,
13-year-old.
teenagers, they don't care as long as somebody bleeds. You know?
It's true. It's true. It's very true. It's a good point.
I'm not gonna make that joke. After the pod.
It's called growth.
What do you mean it's called growth?
No, that's good that you're not making the joke. That's what
Make it
I'm
later.
Oh, shut up.
saying. Anyways, but yeah, I don't know if there's a way for them to come back because
Yeah.
it just feels like it just feels like parody movies in general just have died to a degree. I can't think of like a recent
Movie 43.
one. Unless it's something like gosh, get out of here. Unless it's something like 21 Jump Street that's making
Yeah.
fun of sequels
Mm-hmm.
and reboots.
Which I feel like to an extent that's the closest we've got.
Yeah.
Are those Chris Lord and Phil Miller, Chris Lord, however their first names, last names are.
think
converted.
You'll get there. Yeah.
Unless it's something like Deadpool that's
Yeah.
just like
Mm.
literally breaking the fourth wall about how
Yeah, but
you
that's
know,
not humor at that point.
Hugh Jackman doesn't want to come back.
That's just
Yeah.
pastiche.
I don't disagree.
Sorry, what word was that?
Pistache, well, however you want.
Panache.
No, ganache, like the food.
Oh, be quiet.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Horror movies. It's a funny time.
In a good place now, but there's really less
we've had a good
variety.
revival. We've had a good revival.
Would you agree? Feels like it.
Yeah, I mean, it
Less
sounds like
variety.
there's like, I'm gonna say it sounds like there's interesting ideas coming out right now, which is kind of cool to see. Versus just like, oh, it's just the same. Man gets big, kills people. Kind
With
of thing,
the exception of Saw 10, it is the one genre I think that has avoided franchising in the last decade. The best.
The Conjurings.
Conjurings. When was the last one that came out?
7 of them.
Wasn't it?
Conjuring
recently?
3 came out in 22, 21.
22.
And even if you're not, there's also like the Nuns,
Yeah, I was gonna say
the
Nun
Annabelle
movie came out recently.
They're in the same franchise.
In the same- it's
all the
one
same
universe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all the same universe.
So even horror movies have been taken by the...
I mean, they just came out with the new Insidious.
Really?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I think a couple months ago. I think it's Insidious. Yeah, it is Insidious because it's
bold of you to assume I know.
the guy. What's his name?
James Wan?
Both of you have computers. Somebody
No,
look it up.
The actor. Sorry, we're trying to have a conversation, Connor.
Wait, it's partial of the conversation.
Average Discord mod.
Oh my god. Don't make me ban you. What does Wikipedia say, James?
What is what? Run that back.
What did I say? That was not Wikipedia.
Insidious: The Red Door, directed by Patrick Wilson in his directorial
Wilson,
debut.
there you go. Thank you. Yep. He's that guy.
When did it
Because
come
you
out?
never know his name.
Oh, it came out in 2023.
Thank you. It's like that's what we were trying to find out.
I always forget his name, but he's in
Who's on
one
first?
movie every year I watch.
You see, it came out in July. That's why it's
Yeah.
like nobody remembers.
By the way, if horror movies don't come out between like September to November, they don't count. Okay, they're not real horror movies to me.
Shout out to all the January horror movie releases that have ever existed.
Shout out to The Exorcist.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Shout out to The Exorcist. God dang.
I don't know. I feel like summer is a good time to be scary. Realizing you have to go back to school. Like, ugh.
I haven't had that feeling since
Can't relate.
2019, Connor.
Dude, I wake up sometimes and I'm still like, oh god.
You still have dreams that you're late to class.
Yeah. 25.
We've been graduated for like 7 years already.
7. Speak for yourself. I went longer.
Oh, I forgot.
Anyway,
Yeah.
horror movies, not the life that is horror.
I think the problem though with the lack of variety is that it's literally like 4 directors making horror movies now.
Yeah.
It's not, hey, we made this, there's this cool idea. Let's make 15 of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's now like, well, we can't really make 15 of the witches,
Yeah.
but we can make
Even-
15 Ari Aster movies, even
even-
though he's going to take like 3 years to make them.
And to an extent, too, I feel like those directors have already tried to like pivot out of horror,
Yeah.
like with Beau is Not Afraid, and even The Northman to an extent. It's like,
Robert Eggers. Except he's going back with Nosferatu.
yeah,
So it's like super
that'll
weird.
be cool.
Pretty excited for that one.
He just makes weird dark movies. I don't even know if they're horror movies at this point.
Just thematically.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like there's still a lot more room to growth to grow with horror movies right now.
Mhm.
Oddly enough, I feel like movies like Funny Games are steps in the right directions because there's a lot more to say. People always talk about we're desensitized to violence, but I have not heard a compelling, like, actual, let's say,
Study?
argument for it, but we still watch horror movies and we
Yeah.
get disgusted at them. And even like during The Godfather, there's still shots where you're just like, oh my God, that's disgusting. Why? That's terrible. Like, we still understand that on an individual level. I feel like I just haven't seen that in movies used to a degree. Funny Games works because it's so specific about the slasher genre that you're like, I know what to expect. Okay, you're not going to give me that. Actually, this is worse. Why would you do this? Whereas I feel like when it comes more to like collectively how people talk about we're desensitized to the news, violence that we see on TV or on whatever apps we're using, TikTok or Reddit or X.
It's called Twitter.
On Twitter.
Elon Musk is going to come after us.
On Wikipedia.
Shout out to Wrecked Threads, unfortunately.
I feel like unless you're a part of that kind of group of people,
I was going to say, wait,
you're
don't shout out Fortune. What are you doing?
you're not going to be desensitized to it.
Well, that was gonna be my like if you want to know if you're desensitized,
Yeah,
go watch
go there.
that, and like you don't even need to click on the videos because
Yeah.
you're just scrolling through and like, oh.
I
Yeah.
don't feel desensitized. I go on TikTok looking at the Palestinian
Yeah.
Israel war, and I'm like, what the hell is going on over there, man?
Like, yeah, I mean, you can make an argument like certain times in games. I'm like, oh, I tap a dude from a distance, and I'm like, I don't really care. But like, there are
I think a lot of
definitely
times
all
context
things.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because if you go into a
Absolutely.
horror movie thinking, oh, 15 people are gonna die at a lake house, it's like,
Yeah.
cool. We can do.
You're not gonna be
We
surprised.
can go literally to the most extreme. We can, Freddie him or Jason him and just stick a big like knife and pin him to the door.
Yeah.
Just by the way, one of the most badass deaths in all of horror
Oh.
movies.
To
But,
a certain extent,
know-
though, I feel like that's an argument in my favor from earlier because
Oh, God.
no.
Chalk one for James.
Here we go.
Just keep a running scoreboard.
Because we can
James thinks he
separate,
was right.
like when
Production
you
plus
watch
scoreboard in
older
there.
horror movies, I feel like there was less suspension of disbelief with, like, these are real people. We don't know how they did the special effects. Nowadays, we can just, even the things that are practical, we'll just dismiss as CGI anyway because it's so commonplace.
Oh, I
So
know,
to a
it's fake.
certain extent, not addressing the way in which audiences can just turn their brains off and say, I understand that this is a movie that I'm watching, is not doing your due diligence all the way if you're making a parody of a horror movie. And I think that's partially why funny games also work slightly better, is because they will just look at the camera and be like, damn,
I can't
So-
believe I did that.
yeah. Wink. So you enjoyed it, didn't you, huh? By the way, don't watch that movie if you like dogs.
Why would you? You know, I'm not gonna watch it. I was gonna watch
Yeah.
it to like, finish it off and be like, wow, this is another one of James's pretentious takes, and like make a joke about
Yeah,
it.
now
like, in the
you
next
actually can't.
But now I feel like I
Now
can't
you're
because I love dogs.
Too pussy for it.
Yeah.
So
What about it, huh? I'm sorry that I'm not desensitized to dog violence like somebody.
like I said, they don't show anything.
Yeah, but it's a thought. That's the point.
That's the point.
We finally got Cutter to understand.
What do you mean finally?
We've come full octagon. Full dodecahedron.
Average Discord mod.
Yeah.
Full dodecahedron. We can come there, but James still won't know how to roll it.
We certainly didn't go in a circle, but we still ended where we began.
Do we have any problems with modern horror movies? Do you guys?
I still think
They're
the lack
too
of variety.
scary.
Oh, be quiet. The lack of variety, definitely, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
that's your biggest one.
I think the lack of variety, and also to a certain extent, the lack of commitment, it feels like, from the directors and studios. I mean, not to say that I just wanted Ari Aster to just do horror movies.
As a monopoly.
Yeah. Or same from Robert
Eggers.
Robert Eggers.
Yeah.
I almost said Rogers. Would have been like the fifth mistake I made saying someone's
A
name
lot of
this
flubs
episode.
in this episode.
Yeah.
It happens.
I'm talking quickly, that's why.
Yeah. For me, too clean nowadays.
Yeah.
They're just like there's not an.
You wanna go back to that old
because
school-
even watching Cabin in the Woods, I was like, this is too.
There's not grimy.
It's not like it's too polished.
Mhm.
It's,
Not enough
it's-
brown.
Yeah.
It's on tripods. We're on dollies too much. Cranes. Like,
Yeah.
let's go back to the old school. Like, Michael is 50 million miles
Yeah.
away, and we're like still holding a camera and like doing a very small zoom. You can tell the AC accidentally touched the lens. Like, I wish we would go back to that style of filmmaking, at least, or to a degree, I would say.
Well, it says a lot too about how I feel like films have evolved production wise, that you can look at a movie like Cabin in the Woods and you're like, this is pretty low budget, but it still looks like they know how to frame a shot and how to space actors so they all appear the same height. Like, those are the kind of things that really weren't even taken into account, where it was like, all right, we rented this house in the middle of Texas, we're going with a camera, let's do what we can.
Because even the newest Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Netflix, it's like vibrant and saturated, and it's like, this is not Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, even say what you want about the numerous remakes and reboots, but like, they're all pretty dirty. They're browns and blacks and dark blues, so it's like grays. So it's like that fits a movie about a cannibal family. This just looks like I'm watching an H&M commercial. It's gone wrong.
That's why, like, I still think the Rob Zombie Halloween reboots were still the better reboots of Halloween because it's like he took that into account that it's like, I want this movie that just looking at a single frame will make you feel uncomfortable, whether it's claustrophobic or it just looks like you're, shaky cam for the win again. Yeah. I think works.
If that's gonna be open or closed. My God, you keep.
I keep thinking I have to Google this, and I'm like, no, never mind.
The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.
He just keeps opening and closing his laptop, and I'm like, just make a call.
Don't put your stuff up before the end of the episode.
Sorry,
but to go on with
the DM and Connor coming.
Yeah. I'll leave it open then.
It's the me ending a statement, and you guys like packing your dice, and I'm like, I'm not done.
Goes 2 more
15 minutes of
and then he
content.
says 2 more sentences. All right, now you can back yourself.
Exactly.
Shut up.
Listen, but to go off of like they're too clean. I feel like that can also lead into more interesting horror aspects of when you have something really bright and clean, but it's still like this is unnerving in the fact that it's too bright and clean.
Funny games.
And that's fine when the like,
obviously when that's the premise
plot
and not,
and the arena calls for it, but when it's literally, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean I get what you're saying. It's just like as in like, if for some reason we
because
get
you
really
can
big
make,
and people
Get
start
Out is super well polished, but that was what makes it creepy. Is you're like,
there's also the unnerving aspect to it. Yeah.
I feel uncomfortable watching this guy be in this environment. I can't even imagine what he feels
what
like.
he's doing. Yeah.
There's an extent to which I feel like every movie trying to make itself look like its budget is 10 times more what it actually was.
Yeah.
Sometimes actually kind of hampers and hurts it. Because like I've gone back and rewatched older films or watched them for the first time where I'm like, I can just tell they had a single camera to film this whole thing with. I can just, you feel it.
Yeah.
You just know. I will never get that feeling from anything post 2000 because everything is either multicam or we just have evolved past that style of editing and framing. To a certain extent, I'm like, that's a style there that you can still adapt upon. Everyone just moved past it and they're like, nah, everything is going to look $50 million budget no matter what it's about.
And you can make dirty, grimy movies even with newer technology. I mean, think of like David Fincher.
I was going to say Inherent Vice.
Inherent Vice, yeah. PTA does it very well in like, what am I thinking of? Oil.
The Master, or There Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood, yeah, it's like a great example of a dirty, grimy movie, but it is still composed well. It's just turns out when you have one of the greatest directors of the 21st century,
he knows what he's doing,
composing your shots and knows what he's doing. It's like, oh, that works, So there is, we can, yes,
we can.
It's just, I feel like there's just talent, not.
It's misdirected.
Either just yeah.
And I think that's to loop way back to the what do we think about the horror genre currently. That's one of the things that is kind of exciting is I feel like there's a lot of really cool up and coming indie creators doing some really cool stuff and making some really cool ideas.
All of A24.
Well, I meant more indie than that.
Oh, yeah, like YouTubers.
Yeah. Like passion project stuff.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid for this.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Marble Hornets. This is where we get to bring it up.
Yeah. Well, you said we're not doing another one, so I was going to loop it in somehow.
Yeah.
But just like, that kind of like, I feel like, well, maybe a lot of the bigger budget movies are kind of, feeling very samey. There's a lot of really cool stuff on YouTube and those kind of medias that are like, just different and unique and fun takes on it without being too like in your face or. I mean, I don't like horror. I've said that all both of these episodes.
I don't.
Horror
like
sucks.
Yeah.
I am subscribed to Kane Pixels. Every time he uploads, I watch it and I sit there and slack-jawed in awe, and then I don't sleep that night. Like, I mean, there are some creators out there doing some really cool stuff. And I think that should be the future. Is that I feel like we need to start grabbing more. Well, I say that Kane Pixels has been already looped into a movie.
Yeah.
But just like we need to grab more of those indie people and give them a platform and see what they come up with.
The problem is they're gonna end up getting bought by Marvel and Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line.
We're going full like 1980s Hollywood, where it's these young directors are coming up, and then it's like, all right, here's a Marvel movie for you guys.
Yeah,
and they just get caught in the machine that is corporate Hollywood.
And you got to be very like careful.
What do we do? I mean, Taika Waititi is like example A. Like this director who was really good, and now he's just kind of like, people are starting to think, people up on First Take, people are talking Taika Waititi overrated. Here's why his 4 movies don't matter.
Classic.
Jojo Rabbit was good, I felt.
No, yeah, he has good movies. Jojo Rabbit's. That's the one I showed you about.
Yeah,
the
the one
German
you sent me.
kids.
Yeah, the TikTok of. Yeah.
I feel like, to an extent, to your point, I would worry that approach of trying to not only be an indie project making something, but to have an indie aesthetic has sort of been landlocked in YouTube for a while now at this point. I feel like, with the exception of the occasional gimmick movie like Unfriended, you know, or something like that, Paranormal Activity, yeah. The original. It's like, those haven't, and I was going to go as far back as the Blair Witch Project.
Yep.
Where it was like, that element of, this is real people making this behind this, not necessarily Cannibal Holocaust levels, but, you know, Blair Witch Project had the exact same effect as Cannibal Holocaust anyway.
Made waves.
Yeah. Even with, you know, since you and I like Marble Hornets a whole lot on YouTube, the way that has presented Slender Man, that then went on to have actual real life consequences in legal cases, not just the movie itself, but
yeah,
like
also the fact that
ever since, you know, those were the first guys to just be like, this is a real thing. And then everybody was like, oh my God, this is a real thing. Oh my God, this is a real thing. Kids are getting murdered because of it.
Which, I mean, admittedly kind of like cool in a dark meta sense of just being able to affect the world like that.
Yeah, seriously.
That's real horror.
That's crazy
Yeah.
too, because it's not like an early internet thing. It's like, this happened in 2013. Like, we understood the internet to a degree.
Knew that a lot
not
of
to
it
the
was
level
fake,
we do now, but like, we were starting to become more cognizant of, you know, things that are fake or whatever.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
And I mean, those early photos looked, they were super fake anyway.
Oh yeah,
you
I
could
was
tell
freaked
immediately.
out by them. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it was creepy.
Middle
But just
school
like,
me was terrified of the
dude,
Slender
I
Man.
still like sometimes I'll be like
The
just chilling.
games terrifies me to this day. I think I downloaded it on my phone.
I mean, shit. Some of the Marvel Hornets episodes, you can tell I'm like, wow, that is the fakest person in a suit I've ever seen. And still, like, I would finish it and be like, there's like one where like he has like a super fake noodle arm come over a door, and I'm like, wow, that is so fake. And that night, I stared at my door the entire night.
The thought, right?
Just the concept, like, well, maybe it's not fake.
Yeah,
Like,
I think they get away with it because they don't show it everything.
no, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that lack of
Power of mystery.
the power of mystery still, which I think a lot more modern movies have taken account of. The Babadook comes to mind first. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that or not.
I know about it. I haven't seen it.
There's a degree where it's like, we won't show you the monster to the extent that just makes it scarier. Which,
I mean, Cloverfield, it kills all of New York, and we don't see it to the very last frame
until it's blurry.
Yeah.
So
it's like the greatest.
Blair Witch Project honestly did that first, but unintentionally.
Yeah.
Fun fact: they literally, the campers in the Blair Witch Project, the producers woke them up in the middle of the night, and they had on a hill way out in the distance a guy dressed in a Blair Witch costume, like with a spotlight on him. And these freaking actors who had no idea what was going on see this guy, and they just start running. But the light on the camera died. So it's it's just darkness, and you just hear the actors screaming, and you don't see a single thing that's happening. And they're like, well, we can't exactly get a second take of this, we just got to use this in the movie. And it's that thing where you're just like,
It's one of the greatest.
yeah,
It's one of the greatest accidental mistakes of all time.
Scary, you know? Where I was like, but even that, you know, has been parodied to an extent, because there's almost an absurd element where it's like, if this was higher budget, if they were trying to make it look a little more polished, they would get a second take. They would actually show you what was happening, you know?
Because you can tell, right, when a movie just doesn't have the money to show you the monster. Yeah. Whether because it's CGI or just like it doesn't look scary or whatever. Mm-hmm. Instead of it being like an artistic decision.
Yeah. What can you do, you know? Support indie creators.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In all things.
In all things.
Unless they're bad indie creators, then
don't support them. Kick them to the curb.
Yeah. Looking at all the Five Nights at Freddy's remakes. First games weren't good. Those games aren't good.
I don't think I've ever played it.
I've never played any of them.
When you're, I'm not going to talk about this. I was like, I'm about to go on a
gonna see the
tangent.
movie?
And of course, I'm going to see the movie.
I kind of want to watch the movie.
I'm going to see the movie if only to see how long they go before Matt Pat shows up or is referenced.
I
directly.
literally just want to
Yeah.
see if they bring out a Markiplier.
Oh yeah, One of
Like
those
I just
two
want to
guys-
see if like one of the
That
big
would be
YouTubers
cool.
just show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not gonna happen.
No, I guarantee it. It's
They're gonna be
happen.
like
feel
a
like
voice
it's
on a
gonna
phone or on the
happen.
TV.
That's still- that's referencing. Yeah, that's still gonna be-
obviously.
I mean, fair enough. Yeah.
My favorite joke of that was that at the end of the film, they're gonna have two cops walking up to like the aftermath, and one of them is gonna be like, "What do you think happened here?" And the other guy is gonna pan up and just be Matt Pat, and he's like, "I have a theory."
That's
like that. I like
stupid.
that.
And I'm like, that would be great.
That would
make
take
the movie
me
a
out.
10 out of 10.
That would take me out of it, but I would love it so much.
Yeah. That's how you make the movie amazing, regardless of how bad the plot is.
I love it.
Oh,
Oh man.
what are we talking about? we got
We're
sidetracked.
not
again.
talking about anything. This is over.
Yeah, I think this has been over for a minute.
Well, I mean, you know,
Do you guys have any last words? Any last thoughts?
Yeah. Go watch Funny Games. It's a good movie. Michael Haneke, one of my favorite directors.
Go watch this Loki movie called Friday the 13th.
yeah.
Mhm.
Go watch the Scooby-Doo live action movies. Those are also pretty good.
Yeah, those are good.
I don't think I've
James
ever
has
seen
never
them.
seen them.
You've never seen?
Not all the way through. No.
I think if I remember a conversation we had at one point, you did say they were bad.
They kind of are.
If
too,
I'm
yeah.
remembering, they're not bad. I don't know why anybody thinks they're bad.
You'd have to actually be pretentious to think they're bad. And well, I mean, it is coming from James, so
Because even in the sense of like a bad movie that's good, it's not even that.
yeah, they're just good films.
They're just funny.
yeah, they're just good films. They're the ultimate like take on how to make a product made for kids and then make it for adults.
It's a talking dog.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. I love
It's
it.
a talking dog high on weed that they never show. It's great.
The cartoon itself, and I love the cartoons, but they're
Yeah.
so out there. And it's like, there's no other way you could do a live action movie other than to make them just stupidly
super far out
outlandish.
there.
No, I agree.
And I love it. I love it too because it has like
James, we're gonna talk on the car.
there's so much good stuff out of it. Did you know that Fred and Daphne are married in real life?
Really?
Freddie Pines Jr. and
Good for them.
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Good for them. That dude's hot. Anyway, moving on.
He also does the voice of I think it's Batman Beyond.
Really?
I think
Nice.
it's Batman Beyond.
He was in an episode of Psych. He was a weird alien loving dude.
I think he's also in Star Wars. He voices a character in Star Wars. Anyways,
James, you had his page open.
Oh, I was just looking at Matthew Lillard.
Matthew Lillard, yeah,
Also,
the
yeah.
iconic voice of Shaggy,
Yep.
has been the voice of
He
Shaggy.
is the voice of Shaggy
now,
except
too.
for I think this last movie that Warner Brothers did. I think that's the only time he hasn't been the voice of Shaggy
Nice.
since the movies came out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Shaggy, good character.
And then of course Linda Cardellini, the love of my life, as Velma.
Yeah. It's the fact that we're having such like a good moment about this, and I can see James is entirely over it and just wants to move on and be done, and I'm just like I'm so mad, like I'm seething with
Yeah,
rage,
I'm not having it. All right,
more so than I was at the end of Godfather Part 3.
What are we doing?
I think we're ending this.
What are we doing next week?
What are we doing next week? Killers of the Flower Moon, most likely. If not, we'll see Five Nights at Freddy's.
Is that coming out like next week?
Oh, I have no absolutely no
Oh,
idea.
let's find out.
Let's find out.
I was like, I didn't realize it was that soon.
Hey Siri, when does Five Nights at Freddy's come out?
It's actually already released.
Nights at Freddy's was published August 8th, 2000.
Oh, the game.
No.
Good job, idiot.
27th. Comes out the 27th.
Perfect.
Oh,
We
wow,
can
that's
go watch
super
it.
cool.
We can do a double feature.
Double feature.
Do a double feature.
And then talk
We
about
can-
which one's scarier.
Barbie Heimer a second time.
They are, yeah, like
When is the 20th? That's Friday, right?
so off. Yeah, that's Friday.
All right, join us next week for Five Nights Under the Killer Moon.
Should be a good time.
Yeah.
Should be a great time. Yeah.
All right,
I'm
see
just
you guys
joking.
later.
One of those movies I'm interested in.
We're out of here. Press the stop.